Hey, it's Jeremy again. Let's take a look at some of the games we played. Let's take a look at Triple Town. One of the first things you'll notice is that the tutorial is very text-heavy. The original goal is clearly stated, as is the theme, but then instructions come through these long text dialogues that most players will skip. I'm actually not reading them. I am simply tapping where the green arrow points, and this is a pattern we've observed again and again over the years. Players will tap, tap, tap until the text goes away, and then try to figure out how to play the game once the tutorial is over. This can be kind of disheartening and is certainly very annoying to observe as a game designer. But you should expect it, especially if your game is free, because players don't have much money invested in playing the game. How can you work around this? One thing that Triple Town did very well is communicate on a very high level the point of the game by using animations at the very beginning to show me that when I matched several items of the same type, they combined. So even if I didn't read any of the text, I roughly know that this is a matching game. The next thing they did is they created a first level that is very forgiving. I can make many bad decisions, and a few good ones, in a safe space that allows me to figure out the rules of the game as I play. My hunch is that the people who eventually learned how to play Triple Town either read about it in the press, were told it was very good because it got great reviews, and therefore had the patience to learn how to play, or, more generally and more likely, were simply able to figure out how to play after the tutorial ended. So what can we learn from Triple Town? Make a forgiving first level if you think players are going to skip the tutorial. Visually animate the key aspects of your game so that players don't have to read to understand them. Remember that most players may not read, and in fact many will not speak the language that your text is in, so you can't count on them reading the text. It's a nice plus if they do, but consider designing the game without it. Think of this tutorial and imagine what it would have been like if there was no text, simply arrows and animations. The last thing to consider is that they do not present all the information up front. Some of the tutorial prompts and some of the text you're seeing comes as you play. So you can play a little bit without seeing any text until you reach a milestone that then has the game explain to you the next step. Whether you do this through text or through highlighted instructions, it's important to not front-load your entire tutorial at the very beginning of the first playthrough. You want to spread it out and only tell players a piece of information when they absolutely need it to progress. Next up, we have Jetpack Joyride, arguably the most popular infinite side-scroller of all time. There's no real tutorial. The opening screen says touch anywhere to play, and you're in. There are no obstacles at the beginning, giving you a safe space to experiment with the controls, and you quickly discover that tapping moves you up and letting go has you fall. The game uses established convention, so you know that the coins are good and you should collect them. It's obvious that these barriers are bad, you should avoid them, and that's all you need to know to have fun. The game quickly introduces new and exciting elements. A novice player might not notice the red exclamation point on the right of the screen and might fail to avoid the missile. But even if you got hit by it, the next time you played, you'd learn to look on the right of the screen and you'd be able to avoid them and go further. Now I still messed up here, and I'd like you to notice how quickly it pulls up a recap screen for me that allows me to get straight back into the action with one tap. I can also go into a store that lets me spend my coins on extra skins, power-ups, items, and other fun things to extend the game replay value of this game. So with one tap, I'm back in it, and it is so delightful to knock through that wall and start running again. I did pretty well in this playthrough, so I'm going to fast forward to show you some other interesting segments. The game has randomly generated power-ups, and even if you never go in the shop, for a novice player, discovering all these different varied power-ups is an exciting enough reason to come back and play over and over again. The gameplay also changes as you go through different areas. You have to learn different patterns of different obstacles, and as you learn them, you get better at progressing further in the game. It's a game that is incredibly satisfying because you can get better at it noticeably with every playthrough in the first 10 or so playthroughs. You'll also notice that the game looks incredibly polished. We're going to cover this in more detail later in the program, but on a high level, I'd like you to notice that every interaction, every time one object in the game touches another, anytime you interact with the game and tap the screen, and really anytime any in-game object takes an action, there is an animation. There is not a single thing that happens in this game, from a menu appearing to a coin touching your character, that is not accompanied with an animation, subtle or obvious. And the collection of all these beautiful animations subconsciously communicate to your brain that this is a professionally produced game. And you can replicate that subconscious feeling by implementing this level of polish in your game as well. So to recap, Jetpack Joyride is delightful the moment you start playing, incredibly easy to pick up with no real tutorial, has amazing reasons to come back and playing that are simple but engaging, and is really easy to play over and over and over again because you can jump right back into the action. 4 Pics 1 Word teaches you how to play through its title. There are 4 pictures and you have to find one word to describe them. Notice how the first level is a total giveaway. The developers want to show you the rules, not tell you the rules. In fact, there is no text tutorial. The game simply trusts you to figure it out, and you should draw inspiration from this. It is totally okay to build levels in your game that are easily or even automatically beaten as a way to teach players certain concepts. I'd recommend that every time you introduce a new concept to players in your game, you give them an area of gameplay that is easier than average so they can experiment with this concept and truly understand it. This game is super addictive because it's well paced. They give you easy word after easy word, and then eventually you get stuck just as you feel like you're on a roll. When you get stuck, it's terribly frustrating. It always feels like the answer is on your fingertips, and you'll do one of two things. Either you're going to notice the icons in the bottom right of the screen that let you pay coins to unlock hints, and if you run out of coins, they're going to charge you real-world money, a big win for the developers. The other thing that you might do if you get stuck is show the game to a friend. It's so easy to understand that anyone can help you, and when you can't figure something out, it's natural to show someone else to get their opinion on how to solve the puzzle. Not only this, but I noticed that on Facebook, people were posting screenshots of this game to Facebook groups trying to get strangers to help them beat levels. This game is so easy to understand that you can blast a screenshot of the level you're on to total strangers on the internet, and they can help you beat it. Every time this happens, you're creating new customers for 4 Pics 1 Word. And given the nature of this game, how easy it is to pick up, and how natural it is to show it to other people, it's no mystery that this game went very, very viral. Dots is a game that projects simplicity and beauty in a way that is rare on the iPhone App Store. From the moment it starts, it is impeccably designed, and every touch to the screen is satisfying. Clearing dots is very aesthetically pleasing and also very easy to understand. So a player coming to this game for the first time not only gets a beautiful experience, they get a satisfying one that is easy to pick up. This game feels right. One of the really cool things about Dots is that it has different gameplay modes that drastically affect the nature of gameplay. There's a timed mode that tests your reflexes. Connecting 2 dots is a valid move, though it doesn't get you many points, but it's a good way to get started as a beginner, and you try and see if you can get bigger connections as fast as possible. It's primarily twitch and reflex based, but of course you get better as you play. In contrast, the fixed move mode gives you a set number of moves and no time constraint. All of a sudden, the challenge is how far can you think ahead? It's a totally different feeling game. And I feel like Dots succeeded in part because when you open the game, it's so obviously satisfying, so beautiful, so easy to pick up, and then you land upon one of 2 game modes that better suits your style. I'd like all of you to think about how you might change one simple rule in your game to result in completely different gameplay. I don't want to encourage you to release more than one mode in the first version of your game that you submit to the App Store. But I do want to encourage you to experiment with creating a variety of different modes by tweaking rules to see if you can land on something that maybe suits your target audience better or that you think is simply more fun. You'll notice that when I beat a level, I get showered with trophies. This is really important. As a beginner player, especially in a puzzle game where I'm getting scored, I feel like I might not have done that well. Maybe I missed a lot of combos. Did I really understand the game correctly? So to get showered with trophies is a positive affirmation that encourages me to keep on playing. Tiny Wings is a little game with a lot going on. It has a counterintuitive control scheme that is very satisfying to master. It's an infinite side-scroller where you try to go as far as you can while getting a high score and accomplishing goals the game gives you. Initially though, you're not thinking about anything beyond mastering the controls. There's a tutorial that's a bunch of text you won't listen to or read, and then the game has a genius move, an on-screen tutor that tells you when to tap the screen. It guides you through the first 3 areas of the game, ensuring that a novice is able to make it at least past the first 3 areas after a couple playthroughs. If you tap when the finger tells you to, you will make it past those first 3 areas. Once you make it past, then you can start thinking about the larger goals in the game. I'd like you to notice how at the end of every area there is a big downhill slope where you can't mess up. This is a reward for beating the area, and it is so satisfying. How can you reward the player for simply sticking around and give them a cool payoff at the end of a level, especially in the form of a section that they simply cannot screw up? The fact that you can lose this game mere seconds before making the next downhill slope is part of what makes it so addictive. Because if you just barely make it to the downhill slope before time runs out, the payoff is so satisfying. You get a big boost of speed, and you're guaranteed at least a few more seconds of gameplay. This is one of my favorite parts about Tiny Wings, and I've seen many addicted fans play this game simply to get as far as possible, paying no attention to the goals. Once you're really satisfied and comfortable with your mastery of the control scheme, you can start exploring the complexities of the game. Overall though, one of the things I like the most about this game is how satisfying it is to finally get a hang of the control scheme, and how punishing it is to mess up on a jump. And once you get in the flow of flying high, successfully and often, the game is unbelievably addictive and you don't want to stop. Dumb Ways to Die, what a hilarious name. And what an interesting backstory. This game was commissioned by an Australian metro company as a public safety announcement against the dangers of trains. It's a really, really odd backstory for a game that has gone on to be internationally successful and top the charts, but here we are. It's a collection of minigames, and they really shine by their humor. The art is hilarious, and every minigame is really, really silly. It describes a dumb way to die. There's no upfront tutorial, and the minigames have the rules presented every single time you play them, even if you encounter the same minigame twice in the same play session. And this has a couple cool side effects. One, it constrains the developers. They can't make minigames that are too complicated. The rules have to fit in a sentence. And if you're short on ideas for whatever reason, a cool brainstorming prompt is to think of game mechanics or game ideas where you could fit the instructions in one sentence. The other cool side effect is that it makes the game really easy to get into, and especially to get back into. If you leave a game for 3 to 4 days and it's one of the 20 that's on your phone, it can be daunting to go back into a game. You have to remember where you were, get your bearings, remember the rules. But with Dumb Ways to Die, you're always confident that if you hit that play button, you can jump right back into it. The game doesn't force you to commit to learning anything or retain any information because the rules are presented every single time. And that's really nice. So play this game and learn from it. It's delightfully simple, really hilarious, and its entire virality comes from the fact that you really want to show it to other people once you've played it because it's so silly and funny. On top of that, they made a viral YouTube video. Drop 7 is another game with too much text in the tutorial. They try to teach you with these big text boxes that no one's going to read, and honestly, you could really figure out how to play the game by looking at the animations and results of your actions, and by fiddling around once they actually let you play. If you're going to make a game like this, I would encourage you to find another way of teaching players than these big boxes of text. This game is an interesting case study because it was published by a multi-billion-dollar gaming company, Zynga. Yet it's the kind of game we wouldn't be surprised to see come out of the Summer Academy. And in that regard, it's really exciting. Someone with your resources, your skill set, and the time you have available could build something that competes with a multi-billion-dollar gaming empire. Even 10 years ago, there did not exist a platform or a distribution mechanism that could allow someone like you to compete with someone like them. And in that context, this game is very exciting to me, but it does have some flaws. First of all, the core gameplay isn't particularly exciting. It is a new twist, but why? It doesn't add anything that makes me want to show this game off to friends. There's no good reason for me to return to this game, and the core gameplay is really slow-paced. And that's probably the biggest failing of Drop 7. When mobile gamers open your game for the first time, They're going to decide within 15 to 30 seconds whether they want to continue playing or quit it forever. You have that long to capture their attention, and big text boxes is not the way to do it. Now, if they are convinced to play your game and they come back and play it a second time, they're going to want to have a good experience that is satisfying within the first minute. If you open a competing game like a Bejeweled, for example, or even Tetris, you get exciting gameplay moments within a first minute of gameplay. Whereas in Drop 7, it's possible to play really slowly and have nothing exciting happen over the course of minutes. This simply isn't the right fit for mobile gaming. People are impulsive and play in short time spans. As a result, I would strongly encourage you to look at Drop 7 as an example of a game that simply moves too slow. QuizUp is a game made in Iceland that became internationally successful. I actually know a couple of people who work there and happen to have visited their offices in Iceland before the game launched. Little did I know that I was meeting the crew that was going to produce a chart-topping social game. QuizUp's gameplay style matches a formula that many social games have used to become successful. At its core, it's a trivia game. You pick categories, answer trivia questions, and get a score based on how many you answer correctly. But the game adds a social twist to it, where you can send your score to friends, and then they have to try to get a better score. You get all the benefits of having a core game that is fun. Players come and play it simply to play the game, plus the benefits of being a social game. You want to hear back and see how well your friends did compared to you. If they beat you, you want to play again to try to beat them back, and so on and so forth. This has been done successfully with other games that used to be self-contained single-player games. For example, Temple Run is an infinite runner where at the end you get a score. So Zynga released a game called Running with Friends, where the core gameplay was a clone of Temple Run, where you got a score, but then that score was sent to a friend and they had to try to beat it. Instantly, it became more addictive. In fact, I think that we lost a week of office productivity when that game first came out because everyone downloaded it and we just got stuck in this loop of trying to beat each other's scores. We would play at night, and even worse, we started secretly paying money to the game to get power-ups that we could use to improve our score without admitting it to our office mates. So I wake up in the morning and my co-founder would have beaten my score, and I thought that it was because he did well, and I later found out that maybe it was because he spent $10 to get a power-up pack, and that's what let him beat me. These games have amazing potential to re-engage players, keep them addicted, and get them to spend. If you're interested, approach a team member about how to make a game like this one. It'll take some extra work, so you should be committed to making your game even more simple than your peers. But sometimes wrapping it in a social layer that turns the game competitive is what you need to push it over the edge to make it remarkable and successful.